Hare Krishna. Welcome back to Gita Verse Hub. Today, we arrive at one of the most important turning points in the entire Bhagavad Gita. What if I told you that one of the greatest spiritual teachings ever spoken in human history began not with peace, but with a complete mental breakdown? On the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Arjuna looked at his teachers, relatives, friends, and loved ones standing before him, and his heart broke down. In the previous verses of the Sankhya Yoga, we saw Arjuna drowning in emotional paralysis. If you want to get more detailed explanation of the previous verses, the link to the episode is there in the upper right corner of this video. Arjuna dropped his Gandiva bow. His body trembled. His mind became clouded. He began justifying inaction with philosophical arguments. He spoke about morality, family destruction, social collapse, sin, compassion. But internally, he was overwhelmed by grief and attachment. And finally, in verse 7, Arjuna surrendered. I am confused about my duty. I am your disciple. Please instruct me. This changes everything. Because the moment ego surrenders, wisdom begins. And now, for the very first time in the Gita, Krishna speaks. Not merely as a friend, not merely as a charioteer, but as the supreme teacher. And his very first teaching cuts directly into the root of human suffering. Today's verse is Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, verse 11. The verse where Krishna begins awakening Arjuna and humanity from illusion. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Asocyananvasocastvam Pragnavadamscha bhasasi Gatasum agatasumscha Nanusochanti panditaha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, while speaking learned words, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. Notice something remarkable. Krishna does not begin with comfort. He does not say, everything will be okay, don't worry, take rest, your emotions are valid. Instead, he immediately challenges Arjuna's perception. Why? Why? Because Krishna is not merely trying to soothe Arjuna emotionally. He is trying to awaken him spiritually. There is a huge difference. Modern society often treats emotional discomfort as the ultimate problem. But Krishna teaches that ignorance is the deeper problem. The real issue is not pain itself. The real issue is mistaken identity. Arjuna thinks, these people are going to die. Krishna says, you do not yet understand who truly dies. This becomes the foundation of the entire Gita, as is evident from the purport in Bhagavad-gītā As It Is. The Lord at once took the position of the teacher and chastised the student, calling him indirectly a fool. The Lord said, you are talking like a learned man, but you do not know that one who is learned, one who knows what is body and what is soul, does not lament for any stage of the body, neither in the living nor in the dead condition. As explained in later chapters, it will be clear that knowledge means to know matter and spirit and the controller of both. Arjuna argued that religious principles should be given more importance than politics or sociology. But he did not know that knowledge of matter, soul, and the Supreme is even more important than religious formularies. And because he was lacking in that knowledge, he should not have posed himself as a very learned man. As he did not happen to be a very learned man, he was consequently lamenting for something which was unworthy of lamentation. The body is born and is destined to be vanquished today or tomorrow. Therefore, the body is not as important as the soul. One who knows this is actually learned, and for him there is no cause for lamentation regardless of the condition of the material body. According to A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada, in Bhagavad-gītā As It Is, Krishna immediately identifies Arjuna's confusion as bodily consciousness. Prabhupada explains, Arjuna was speaking like a learned man, but his grief revealed attachment to the temporary body. This is one of the deepest insights in Vedic philosophy. A person may appear intellectually sophisticated, emotionally mature, socially respected, yet if they identify only with the body, the wisdom remains incomplete. Prabhupada repeatedly emphasizes, the soul is eternal, the body is temporary. Real wisdom begins when we understand, I am not this body. This teaching is revolutionary because almost every human anxiety originates from bodily identification. I am aging, I am losing status, my appearance is changing, my relationships are ending. My body is sick. My success defines me. Krishna says, no, these are experiences of the body, not the eternal self. Prabhupada explains that a truly learned person understands the distinction between the body and the soul. Therefore, they do not become destroyed by temporary transformations. This does not mean they become emotionless. It means they see reality more deeply. Does Krishna condemn emotions? This is very important. Krishna is not saying never feel sadness. The Gita never teaches emotional suppression. Krishna is teaching transcendence, not numbness. There is a difference between healthy compassion and illusion-based attachment. Arjuna's grief was not pure compassion alone. It was mixed with confusion, fear, attachment, and avoidance of duty. Sometimes what appears to be kindness is actually escapism. Modern example. A parent refuses to discipline a child because they love them. But in reality, they fear conflict. A leader avoids difficult decisions because they care about people. But internally, they fear criticism. A person stays trapped in toxic relationships because they mistake attachment for love. Krishna challenges emotional weakness disguised as wisdom. And this is uncomfortable because we often do the same thing. Krishna tells Arjuna, "You speak like a wise man." This statement contains subtle irony. Arjuna's arguments sounded philosophical, but Krishna saw through them. This is profoundly relevant today. Modern culture is filled with intellectual language. People use psychology, philosophy, spirituality, motivation, self-help terminology. But internally, many remain deeply fearful and attached. We can quote wisdom without living wisdom. We can post spiritual content without spiritual realization. We can sound awakened while remaining internally restless. Krishna disguises between information and realization. True wisdom transforms perception, not merely vocabulary. Adi Shankaracharya explains that grief arises from ignorance of the self. The Atman, the true self, is unborn, unchanging, eternal. Sorrow exists because humans mistake the non-self for the self. According to Advaita Vedanta, ignorance creates false identification. The moment one realizes the eternal self, fear dissolves. because what is eternal cannot truly perish. Ramanujacharya emphasizes devotion and surrender to the divine. He explains that the soul belongs eternally to God. Thus, death is not annihilation. It is transition. For Ramanuja, Krishna's teaching removes hopelessness by placing life within divine continuity. Swami Vivekananda frequently echoed this Gita principle. He taught, "Strength is life, weakness is death." He admired how Krishna awakened courage instead of encouraging helplessness. Vivekananda believed spiritual wisdom should empower action, not passive withdrawal. Mahatma Gandhi interpreted the battlefield symbolically. For him, Kurukshetra represented the inner war within every human being. The battle between wisdom and confusion, courage and fear, truth and attachment. Arjuna's grief becomes humanity's grief, and Krishna's teachings become universal guidance. The wise do not lament for the living or the dead. This line can sound harsh at first. How can someone not grieve? Krishna's point is subtle. The wise understand that life and death are bodily events, not destruction of consciousness. The soul continues. Just as childhood, youth, and old age are bodily transitions, death is another transition. Krishna will explain this more deeply in upcoming verses. But here he introduces the core principle. The wise see continuity where others see ending. Imagine waves in an ocean. One wave rises, another falls, but the ocean remains. Similarly, bodies appear and disappear, but consciousness continues. This verse is astonishingly relevant today. Anxiety about change. Many people suffer because they resist impermanence, like career changes, aging, breakups, financial uncertainty, identity shifts. Krishna teaches change is natural to the material world. Suffering intensifies when we expect permanence from temporary things. Modern people often derive identity from external validation, referred as social media identity. External validations like followers, likes, titles, appearance, achievements. But have you ever thought what happens when these disappear? Depression, emptiness, crisis. Why? Because identity was attached to temporary constructs. Krishna redirects identity towards the eternal self. Next, we move on with a fear that everyone faces. Fear of death. Modern civilization avoids discussing death, yet fear of death silently controls many decisions. Krishna confronts death directly, not pessimistically, not philosophically. He teaches that consciousness transcends bodily destruction. This changes how one lives. A person who deeply understands impermanence becomes less fearful, less attached, more courageous, and more compassionate. This verse also highlights the difference between attachment and love. One of the greatest misunderstandings in human life is confusing attachment with love. Attachment says, "You belong to me." Love says, "I want your highest good." Attachment creates fear. Love creates freedom. Arjuna's pain came partly from attachment to bodily relationships. Krishna expands his vision toward spiritual understanding. This does not reduce love. It purifies love. Because spiritual love sees the soul, not merely the body. This verse also aligns with profound psychological truth. Much human suffering comes not from events themselves, but from interpretations. Two people can experience the same loss. One collapses completely. Another grows wiser. Why? Because consciousness shapes experience. Krishna is transforming Arjuna's consciousness. Modern psychology often focuses on reframing thoughts. The Gita goes even deeper. It reframes identity itself. Not how do I feel better, but who am I really? That question changes everything. Today's battlefield may not involve arrows and chariots, but everyone faces Kurukshetra. A student battling pressure, a parent struggling with responsibility, a professional facing ethical conflict, a person facing heartbreak, someone dealing with illness, someone questioning purpose. Like Arjuna, many people freeze. They overthink, avoid action, become emotionally exhausted. Krishna's first teaching remains timeless. See clearly before reacting emotionally. Wisdom must guide emotion, not the other way round. This verse marks the true beginning of spiritual life. Not rituals alone, not external appearances, not intellectual debate, but the realization. I am eternal consciousness, temporarily experiencing the material world. Everything in the Gita unfolds from this foundation. Without this understanding, life becomes driven entirely by fear and attachment. With this understanding, life gains clarity, purpose, and inner steadiness. Bhagavad-gītā Verse 11 from Sankhya Yoga is more than a verse. It is a wake-up call, a reminder that human suffering often begins when we forget our deeper identity. Arjuna thought the battlefield was his greatest problem. But Krishna revealed something deeper. The real battle was not happening inside his consciousness, and perhaps the same is true for us. Sometimes we think our greatest problem is our career, our finances, our relationships, our uncertainties, our failures. But beneath all of them lies a deeper question. Who am I? Am I merely this temporary body, this temporary role, this temporary identity? Or is there something eternal within me? Krishna's teachings invite us to live with a broader vision, to act with courage, to love without attachment, to face change without collapsing, to seek truth beyond temporary appearances, and most importantly, to awaken, because the moment spiritual understanding begins, fear slowly loses its grip. The storm of life may still come, but inner wisdom becomes an anchor. And that is why, thousands of years later, the words spoken on the battlefield of Kurukshetra still transform hearts across the world. If this reflection touched your heart, share it with someone who may need these timeless teachings today. And please subscribe to Gita Verse Hub YouTube channel for more deep explorations of the Bhagavad Gita, verse by verse, wisdom for wisdom, life lesson by life lesson. Until next time, Jai Shri Krishna.